Jonathan,
how you doing?
Where are you?
I'm in a hotel in Newcastle. Do you want me to turn that light off behind me? Is that really distracting?
I don't mind. You can do anything.
So I've had a cooked breakfast every morning. I feel fat now.
Putting a shirt on after days of cooked breakfast is never good.
Well, I think I'm getting away with it.
That
A
is
player who I honestly think if you showed me a photo of him, I'm not sure I'd be able to name him. Like, obviously, if he was wearing football kit, I would. But like, if you showed me a picture
right on the back of his shirt, you
civvies,
might recognise him.
Yeah.
We should all go to a Fulham game at some point. Who scored day out? I like going to Craven Cottage. We should all go. It's quite easy to get tickets for a Fulham game. Let's go and watch a Fulham game together. Jonathan, would you come?
Absolutely, it's very close to my flat. So
here we go. Let's get this in the diary. It's exciting. Yeah. I'll look at the fixture list. I'll be on the WhatsApp straight after this show, booking that one in. Because you've been up north for a few days, your accent has become stronger. That happens to me in Birmingham.
Right. Yeah, it happens, definitely.
You've dropped a few more little twangs in there. I've noticed. I've enjoyed it so far.
United and Chelsea are a long way back at the moment, and they could quickly find themselves in a strong position to try and get back in the Champions League. Cause it's been a long time since they're in that competition.
Josh still talking about Manchester United as a Champions League team. Come on, you've won one game, Josh. Keep dropping that. I was on Sky yesterday, just showing off to Jonathan. Wanting to he won't give me any. You know, Fofana goes, their collection of centre backs still isn't right. Johnny Evans, you can't rely on to stay fit for the whole season. Then Daniel Amartey's still playing. Oh my God, what is going on? Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by Josh from WhoScored, and delighted to say my hero, Jonathan Wilson, is back with us this week, and we're off to a great start because I tweeted him last night and he just completely ignored it. But Jonathan, how are you?
I didn't say it. What did you say to me?
I was just saying how I needed to get an early night because I'd missed you and you were back and I was excited and it was going to be like the night before Christmas, but you didn't see it, which was what I expected, to be honest.
I was doing an event at the Literary Philosophical Society in Newcastle, and then I was drinking. You can't expect me to be always on.
No,
but no, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be back and broadcasting with you.
I know, yeah, broadcasting. You can't hide your excitement, and there is a smile on your face, so I'll absolutely take that, Jonathan. Because we haven't had you on yet this season, let's talk about the Premier League season so far. What stood out for you so far? Is there a player, a team, or a trend that you're enjoying?
I think what's interesting is how fallible everybody looks. I mean, Liverpool obviously have been way off it, which is, I mean, I remember the day after the Champions League final, there was a few of us, a few journalists were together in a bar in Paris, and we were sort of saying, "Oh, Liverpool were rubbish that second half. They looked really flat. There was nothing there. They really miss, fit Thiago." And then even as you were saying it, you were sort of thinking, hang on, they haven't lost a game this year. Or they lost the second leg against Inter, having won the first leg comfortably. But they hadn't lost any sort of consequential game that year until that final. And yet actually that instinct that something wasn't quite right seems to be playing out. I don't know if it's fatigue, I don't know if it is the loss of Thiago, they've lost that precision. I don't know if it's a change to the forward line hasn't quite clicked yet. But Liverpool have been way off it. City, I then sort of, after the first two games, I was sort of thinking, well, they're going to walk away with it. But they looked incredibly vulnerable against Newcastle on Sunday. Arsenal have been very good, but they haven't really played anybody of any significance yet. So hopefully, it's not going to be one of those seasons where it's won with 98, 99 points. Hopefully, it is going to be a bit more competitive and teams will be allowed to drop points and still be involved in title race.
Let's look at the first fixture that we're going to look at then for this weekend. It's Nottingham Forest against Tottenham. Now, Jonathan, Leicester City, their Midlands rivals, not really spent a penny just bringing in a backup third-choice goalkeeper on a free, but Nottingham Forest seem to just have endless money, a bottomless pit. They bought about 105 players in this transfer window. 16 they've actually bought, but there is more to come. What are you making of them so far?
I mean, to an extent, the signings were forced on them. They had 5 loan players last season, none of whom yet have made the deal permanent, although one could do. Bryce Samba left. There wasn't really much Forest could do about that. So there was 6 players they needed to replace straight away. Plus, you probably want to bring in another 3 or 4 to strengthen the squad. So to an extent, I get that they needed to bring in a lot of players. But still, bringing in 16, and it could easily have risen to 20 by the end of the window, is a huge number, and you do worry for them that's just too many to put into a coherent system. Having said that, I think Steve Cooper's structure, he's very clear how he wants to play. That's 3-4-1-2. I think on the evidence of the game against West Ham, they seem to have bought players who fit those roles pretty well. I still sort of feel that 4 points is maybe slightly more than they should have got so far. I think they were significantly outplayed at Newcastle. I think they were very, very fortunate against West Ham, and maybe a little bit fortunate to get a point against Everton. So I'm pretty concerned for them. But I also sort of think, well, if your team coming up, especially when they've risen as quickly as they did. I mean, they were in the relegation place in the Championship in September last season. I think they only got into the playoff spots in April. You sort of don't really have much option. There's two ways you can go. You can either say, right, we're not going to spend anything. We're going to expect relegation and we're going to just take the money and then rebuild and come again in 2 or 3 years, which maybe is a financially sensible way to do it, but it's pretty miserable for fans. Or you say, right, we've been out of the Premier League for 20 odd years, however long it is. We're back. Let's absolutely make the most of it. Let's splash the cash. And if we get relegated, we accept that we're going to be in a pretty sticky situation. I don't know what that spending means for FFP. I don't know if this is really going to limit spending in future seasons. I sort of slightly mixed feelings because I think that 4 points is slightly unrepresentative, but I also think they haven't had much option. You
scared me because I went on Sky yesterday and said that Nottingham Forest were certainties to stay up, and you're telling me the complete opposite. So that scared me a little bit.
Well, the last. Do you know who the last club to buy 15 or more players in the summer was? And do you know what happened to them?
I'm going to go. Was it Villa or Fulham?
It was Villa. Yeah.
Was it Villa? Did we buy that Villa?
Stayed up with 15. We stayed up with 35 points. So by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, we only stayed up because of goal line technology not working as well, as everyone tells me on Twitter all the time. Josh, they've signed some great players, to be fair, Nottingham Forest, but recently they've signed Emmanuel Dennis, they've signed Morgan Gibbs-White for what was an astronomical fee. But actually, I look at their team, I don't really see where they fit in because they've got two strikers already. They've got Lingard playing off him, so they're spending money on players that I don't actually see where they fit in.
Yeah, I didn't really take much notice of the amount of players they had signed because, like Jonathan said, it was forced to a certain extent, but it was really the Morgan Gibbs-White deal where I thought this is getting a bit mental now. I think only Chelsea and Barcelona at the time of recording have spent more than Nottingham Forest this summer, which shows the power of the Premier League compared to other European leagues at the moment. But yeah, it's hard enough to get 1 or 2 new signings to gel. Nottingham Forest now need 16 players. And I think I read this morning that Serge Aurier is about to sign for them as well, which would be a red flag for me. They already seem to have got about 55 fullbacks. So to add Serge Aurier to the mix seems a bit weird to me. But I guess, like Jonathan said, Steve Cooper's the big player in all of this. I don't know whether this is something, but the fact that he's had international experience where he's used to managing groups of players that don't often play with each other, maybe that bodes well for him trying to get all these new players to gel together. But yeah, it just seems a bit crazy that how many players they've signed already and that they're still going. It is a massive risk and a gamble, but obviously that's part forced because of the way they went about getting promotion with the loan signings, like Jonathan said. But yeah, you need options. Like you just don't want 11 players to try and get you through a whole season. But yeah, it just seems like when are they going to stop?
They've had some good signings. Nico Williams, for example, I think that's a smart signing. Jonathan, I think he's looked very good early days. I'm sure he'll be terrified by Serge Aurier breathing down his neck. But, Nico Williams has looked very, very good so far, I've thought.
Yeah, he has. I mean, I think the point about the fullbacks is in that system, when you have wing-backs, I think the physical toll on the fullbacks is enormous. And I think we've seen that with Tottenham, that they've pretty consistently since the Pochettino days had 4 wing-backs and they've rotated them in and out. I think you saw Chelsea last season that when the wing-backs got injured, they really struggled for goals because the wing-backs are so essential for getting forward and creating overload type of pitch. So I sort of see that in modern football, you probably don't just need 2 for each position. You probably need 2.5, 3 for each position. And Aurier, I mean, for all his recklessness at times, I think on his day, he's still a pretty. I mean, age, I guess, is starting to eat at him, but he's still a pretty decent wing back. Maybe a better wing back than fullback because he doesn't have to do quite as much defending. And as long as he's happy being the bloke who fills in 6-8 games a season, he works in the Premier League. I also thought that Aurier was he became one of those sort of banter players, and actually I think he was always a little bit better than that, while clearly having the potential to go wildly off the rails.
I think I was one of the people that made him a banter player as well. Region they're trying to get the old band back together, the old Spurs band, because I think they've been linked with Region quite heavily as well. But to be fair, they signed Omar Richards from Bayern, and he picked up a bad injury straight away. So they've had to buy players because they've had players on loan in the nature of the Championship, but then they've signed players to replace players, and then they've got injured as well. Let's talk about Tottenham a little bit, Jonathan. Have you been usually quite a regular watching Spurs? Have you been there this season? Have you seen them live?
I haven't been there yet this season, no. I don't think they've been that impressive, oddly. Results have been good, and I think there's a sense that because that's the opposite of what you expect from Spurs, you expect them to play well and not get results. There's almost a sense that playing, okay and picking up 7 points in the 3 games, that is a positive. It suggests a steal that they've lacked, but they were definitely second best against Chelsea. I mean, look, they comfortably beat Southampton, but they did fall behind in that game. They look pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? It's so lacking in imagination and potency against Wolves, but did get the win. I think Son Heung-min has been out of sorts, and I guess the thing they've got now is that with Richarlison there, they can have one of those forwards out of form and they can just rotate him out. And equally Kulusevski coming in last January, they're less dependent on Kane and Son. So yeah, that's the benefits of having the squad. But I don't think the midfield has quite worked yet. I think it's a danger of that system that you can get overmanned in the middle of midfield. I think Chelsea have found that as well. So I think there's still a couple of things need putting right there. But yeah, they have the potential to get a lot better given the squad and the fact that they have got 7 points without really hitting form is clearly a positive.
Yeah, I think Basuma will make a difference in that midfield. I felt like that Wolves game was crying out for Basuma in there. I think he would have helped them in transition and an awful lot actually going both ways. But like Jonathan says, Josh, if you're a Spurs fan, you'd almost be quite refreshed and pleased by not playing well and we're winning and picking up the points because that isn't Spurs, like Jonathan says.
Yeah, I think that's the massive thing, isn't it? Like Jonathan said, Son hasn't started the season well at all, which I didn't see coming at all, to be honest. He obviously finished last season top of the tree in terms of goals, finished the season so strongly, and I really thought that he would just kick on straight away, but that obviously hasn't been the case. But for Tottenham fans, that doesn't really have to be a concern. Like this time last year, that would have been a massive concern for Tottenham fans. One, because obviously they had Nuno in charge, but then you're relying so heavily on Kane and Son to basically win you games. But this season they've obviously got Kulusevski and Richarlison, so it's not alarm bells aren't ringing straight away at the moment, which is obviously a positive. And as Jonathan said, they're still picking up points without playing well. I reckon Wolves probably would have taken something from them if they actually had someone that can score goals. I think that's Wolves' problem really at the moment. But Tottenham also seem to have found a new way to score this season. I think they brought in a new set-piece coach over the summer, and he seems to have had a massive impact straight away. They've scored from set pieces in each of their first 3 games. Last season they were quite near the bottom for set-piece goals. So if they're not clicking an open play, then now they have another way to win matches or get points, and that can only benefit them, I think, going forward. And you expect them to come good at some point in the near future. So to have avoided a disastrous start, it has to be a positive.
Yeah, Romero's a big miss at the moment, though, isn't he, Jonathan? They've got Romero out for a few more games. He's actually a huge part of how they play going forwards as well, ironically, even though he's a centre-back. Yeah,
his aggression, the way he presses. I mean, of the defensive line, he's the one who leads that line in the press. I think Sanchez has played pretty well since he came in. I think Eric Dyer started the season really well. And I think Eric Dyer will almost certainly be in the England squad come the World Cup, may even be a starter come the World Cup. I think he's somebody who's really benefited under Conte. But yeah, Romero is the leader of that defence. So yeah, when he's not there, that makes things harder for them.
Yeah, Perisic was in the team as well. He's a lovely footballer, Perisic.
Well, and I think his set play delivery is a big part of why they're suddenly looking threatening from set plays, and his ability at the near post flicking the ball on, which is something I hadn't realised was a strength of his.
Yeah, he's decent in the air. Perisic, really good player. Let's have some.
Just on Son. So I looked, because obviously he's made such a slow start to the season. I sort of looked into who has made the slowest start to the season based on their ratings from the back end of last season to this. So basically, who's regressed the most? And Andy Robertson, he suffered the biggest dip in WhoScored rating over the 2 periods. Then Christian Eriksen, Raheem Sterling, and then Son's in 4th. So yeah, it just showed like he hasn't scored yet. He's got 1 assist. But yeah, Richarlison will probably come in for one of his first starts of the season soon, I would imagine, if he doesn't pick up.
Let's have some score predictions for this one then. Nottingham Forest versus Tottenham. Josh, I'll come to who scored first.
We're going for 2-1 to Tottenham.
2-1 to Tottenham. Jonathan?
Yeah, also 2-1 to Tottenham.
And I have got 3-1 to Tottenham Hotspur. Right, next up is the Just a Minute section. I tell you what, you guys are under huge pressure after my display on the Just a Minute section last week. For those that don't know, I got roped in last second to do absolutely no notes in front of me, and I absolutely smashed it. One of the best Just a Minute performances you will ever see. So pressure on you guys this week.
Well, did you want to do mine this week? I'm quite happy to sit back.
No. I want you to do it. I want to hear your voice. I want you to do it. And you'd have done all your prep as well, Jonathan. I don't want that prep to go to waste. I'll tell you what I've noticed about you, Jonathan, this week so far. Because you've been up north for a few days, your accent has become stronger. That happens to me in Birmingham.
Yeah, that happens, definitely.
You've dropped a few more little twangs in there. I've noticed. I've enjoyed it so far. Josh, Brentford against Everton for you.
You're not doing the derbies anymore?
Well, to be honest, we did Nottingham Forest versus Tottenham, and I couldn't think of anyone. So I
Teddy Sheringham, Steve Hodge, come on.
Brentford v Everton, Josh.
There's nothing much to report from the Brentford side of things in terms of team news. Thomas Frank's expected to stick with pretty much the same side that he's used in the last 2 matches. The only real doubt, I guess, is in midfield between Joshua Da Silva and Vitaly Janelt. The rest of the side is pretty settled. Frank will probably be without 3 players again, but then the focus should be on supplying Ivan Toney. He's made a great start to the season, 2 goals, 2 assists in 3 games. Got an assist off the bench against the mighty Colchester in midweek as well. A settled squad is something you absolutely cannot say about Everton. It's been a disastrous start to the season, as I think many people expected. They lost Richarlison. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injured again. Anthony Gordon probably won't be involved this weekend, as talk of a move to Chelsea seems to gather pace for an insane fee. And then it looks like they won't have Decore either because of injury. Yerry Mina, Ben Godfrey, and Andre Gomez, Tom Davies, and Andros Townsend are also sidelined. Everton have lost 14 of their last 18 Premier League away games. So we're going for a 2-0 home win to Brentford this weekend.
Yep, exactly the same for me. 2-0 to Brentford. Jonathan?
I've gone 2-1, just because Brentford have let in 5 goals so far this season. So, yeah, 2-1 to Brentford.
Just quickly before we move on, that Anthony Gordon move. Jonathan, have you got any thoughts on that? Because that makes no sense for any party, in my opinion. It doesn't make sense for the player or either team, in my opinion.
Well, I can see why players want to get out of Everton. It makes sense from that point of view. But, yeah... I mean, this seems to happen with Everton players, that they get a kid who's quite good, who gets massively hyped, and then so the rest of the world's going, are you sure? It happened with Ross Barkley as well. That, and you sort of then you know, as somebody who doesn't go to watch Everton that often, you start to think, well, is it me? You know, do people who watch him regularly see something that I don't? But yeah, what I've seen of Anthony Gordon is he's a decent young player, but yeah, a decent young player. That's all. He's only 4 goals he scored, 3 of them deflected.
4 goals, 3 assists, I believe.
Yeah, which to be moving for the figures they're talking about seems incredible. But
if that money is available for Everton, though, I guess that's a win for them, because it's 60 million for a player who's definitely not worth that.
Yeah, but to get that, 6 days, 5 days before the end of the window. It's not the most useful time to have it. And they desperately then will need a player before January to give them some kind of creative outlet.
Wouldn't probably back Everton to spend it wisely either.
Exactly. They've already got no one in the front 3. They're already struggling, so they're going to get rid of someone in the front 3 to bring a striker in, but then they're going to have no one to supply a striker, and there's no guarantees that you can get a striker in with that money. I keep dropping that. I was on Sky yesterday, just showing off to Jonathan, wanting to he won't give me any. But,
are you on Sky these days, are you?
All through the transfer window once a week. We'll see what happens afterwards. But I've been on once a week through.
I hadn't noticed you talking about that on social media.
And I think you do notice no dropping any likes there, Jonathan. No likes or retweets.
I'd never like anything. I use likes to
You've told me that
stuff.
before. Yeah, you have told me that before. But I thought I'll just put a tweet out to Everton fans and see what they think, because I thought they'd be devastated, but they're actually delighted. Delighted. Yeah. They think the fee's crazy. No, they can't believe it, and they think that Everton should snap Chelsea's hand off. So that probably tells you everything that you need to know there. Let's look then at Brighton v Leeds, Jonathan.
So two sides have both taken 7 points so far. I think Brighton have probably played the better, although Leeds obviously were excellent. Certainly haven't gone ahead against Chelsea. Brighton probably will be thinking they should have taken 9 points. They're much the better side in the draw against Newcastle. But that familiar failing and not being able to take the chances, not having a goal-scoring striker, came back to haunt them again. Having said that, Danny Welbeck's been playing brilliantly up front for them as a target man, holding the ball up, was really excellent at Manchester United doing that. Two sort of different ways of playing. Brighton much more patient in their approach. I think the thing was notable at United was almost how slow they were in the build-up, but very efficient with it. Leeds a lot more aggressive, wildness and recklessness to their pressing. Leeds, as ever, have a load of injuries. Dallas, Firpo, Ayling out. Doubts over Cooper and Bamford. Moda and Sarmiento out for Brighton. Both these games finished level last season, but I'm going to go 2-1 for Brighton this time.
2-1 for Brighton, Josh?
We've gone for 1-1.
And I have gone for 2-2. I was impressed with Leeds last week. Realised what they were about when I was watching them against Chelsea. Sorry, someone's having a food delivery here. Can you hear that on the mic?
Yes.
You just hear it reversing.
I feel like every time I do a podcast, someone has a food delivery. Like the way the noise is coming from my window, but Josh, you still had a little sneaky look out the window there just to see what was going on in your world.
For some reason, I thought I could see what you were talking about.
Let's look now at Chelsea v Leicester, which could soon be the Wesley Fofana derby, Josh.
Yeah, it's already the Ben Chilwell derby.
Frank Sinclair.
Yeah. Koulibaly's red card against Leeds, I think, last weekend will probably offset quite a few changes to the backline for Chelsea. I'm expecting Cucurella to sort of take his position and allow Ben Chilwell back in the team. And then on the other side, I think Azpilicueta might come in and shuffle Reece James out to the right wing back position. Conor Gallagher hopes to get another start in midfield with Kante and Kovacic both looking like they're going to miss out. And I guess it'll probably be the same front three of Mount, Sterling and Havertz, although not been too impressive Havertz this season. But until they sign Aubameyang, I guess there's not much Tuchel can do in that respect. Leicester needed penalties to beat League Two Stockport in midweek. An exceptionally poor summer has unsurprisingly trickled into this season. A third choice goalkeeper is the only signing to speak of at the moment, and there's still uncertainty over the likes of Fofana and Tielemans at the club. Fofana probably won't play again this weekend, and Tielemans, he might come back into the side after his man of the match performance in midweek. It's all looking quite desperate for Brendan Rodgers at the moment, but at least Chelsea aren't in great shape themselves, and also Leicester are actually unbeaten in 4 of their last 5 visits to Stamford Bridge. So maybe there's a positive there for something. They can get a point out of this game. And I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw between 2 underperforming sides.
2-0 to Chelsea.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Chelsea. Leicester, big trouble, in my opinion. I heard on the grapevine as well that obviously managers don't usually walk out because they won't get the payout if they walk out themselves. But actually, that Leicester, even if they wanted to sack Rodgers, they can't afford to sack him. I don't know how true that is. So Leicester just feel in an absolute mess at the moment, and they can't get anyone through the door. They could lose a couple of players still, Jonathan. That they could end up in relegation fight, I reckon.
Yeah, they could do. I mean, I think if without signings, they'd still be okay, probably finish lower mid-table. But if they start losing players as well, then that's a whole other issue. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Brendan Rodgers is starting to think he needs to get out of there to keep his reputation, as it is. He's one of those people who, when we talk about Guardiola potentially leaving City, he's somebody who definitely is on City's radar. And I guess it depends to an extent when Guardiola goes, but it's much harder to justify that status if he's led Leicester into a relegation battle or even into the Championship. Whereas if he walks out now, if he negotiates his payoff now, and if the club hierarchy are thinking of getting rid of him, he may be open to that just to protect his reputation, make sure his next job is a good one.
Yeah, we spoke about them being a mess in defence all last season, and if Fofana goes, their collection of centre backs still isn't right. Johnny Evans, you can't rely on to stay fit for the whole season. Then Daniel Amarty's still playing. Oh my God, what is going on? Vestergaard is still there. Doesn't want to leave, but Rodgers doesn't want to play him, even though he bought him a year ago. They're just all over the place. They can't hold a lead. They're scoring, they concede straight away. Leicester have got all the traits of a team that's going to be in trouble this season. Let's look at now at the Jordan Ibe derby. I'm back on it now. Liverpool against Bournemouth for you, Jonathan. And to be fair, you couldn't name any obscure youth player that Liverpool have sold for crazy money.
Like Jamie Redknapp.
Jamie Redknapp as well. Classic and
Adam
vintage.
Smith.
That was who I would. Did Adam Smith play for? No, Adam Smith didn't play for Liverpool. Am I thinking of the right Adam Smith? The one that's still there? So you got Adam Smith? No, he played for Tottenham. There was an obscure fullback, and I can't remember his name, that they bought for like 6 million, who'd never played for Liverpool.
Okay, yeah.
I can't remember his Solanke. They bought Solanke from Liverpool as well, didn't they? Yeah, Bournemouth spent some money into the Liverpool coffers. Go on then, Jonathan. We'll stop reminiscing.
So Liverpool, 2 points from 3 games this season, have looked off colour really from the Champions League final onwards. I think they would look at that Fulham game and think that they probably should have won that on the second half performance. I think they'd certainly look at the Palace game and think, given they had 10 shots before Zaha scored with Palace's first shot, that they probably should have won that. So those first 2 draws you could justify to an extent. It's just not quite taking their chances. But then outplayed by a struggling Manchester United. And I think suddenly alarm bells are starting to ring. To an extent, it's down to injuries, that they're without Thiago, Jota, Matip, Jones, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Konate, Ramsey, and Nunez is suspended. But that doesn't explain why they're so flat from the start. You wonder whether, as Klopp enters his 8th year, whether there's some fatigue there. Although, given how close they came to quadruple last season, it's obviously absurd to be criticising Klopp. Bournemouth to start pretty poorly, beat Villa, but who doesn't? City and Arsenal, really judge them on that. But I think Liverpool should have enough. So I'm going to say 2-0 Liverpool.
I've gone for 3-0 to Liverpool. Absolutely no need to pick on Villa at all, Jonathan. Josh?
We've gone for 2-0 to Liverpool as well. I think it's just mental that I think they've conceded, haven't they, first in the last 7 Premier League games. But
I think it's more than that.
I think that'll stop here. Yeah,
Scott Parker went to Man City and kind of ripped the game off. There's every chance he might do the same, even though Liverpool aren't flying. But Firmino, what's happened to him? As well, he looks a shadow of his former self. Just can't get involved in the game at all. Can't do anything right. His touch used to be his best thing, and it just feels completely off. So yeah, Liverpool with work to do. Manchester City v Crystal Palace is next for you, Josh.
Guardiola has said that Haaland will be rotated over the next week when they've got 3 games to fit in. So Julian Alvarez will certainly come in for his first start at one point. Calvin Phillips seems to have picked up an injury from that really weird friendly that they played in Barcelona on Wednesday evening. Not sure what the benefit to them for that was. Riyad Mahrez will probably return to the side after he was a substitute against Newcastle. Bernardo Silva will probably drop back into midfield. Guardiola didn't like the lack of control that City had against Newcastle, particularly he felt that they attacked too quickly without patience, and that allowed Newcastle to break. And in Palace, they have a player like Zaha who's capable of doing similar things to Alan St-Maximin. So I'm expecting to see players like Riyad Mahrez come into the side who will slow the game down. Nathan Ake and Laporte will probably miss out again, so it'll be Diaz and Stones at the back. Grealish could make the bench. He had a slight knee issue last weekend, but yeah, he'll probably only make the bench this time. Patrick Vieira has a settled starting 11 at the moment. The only real doubt is who starts up front between Mateta and Udwar. Both forwards have put claims in over the last week or so about who should start there, so it'll be interesting to see who he picks. It's been great to see Eberechi Eze back on form. He's been a real great start to the season for him after such a torrid time with injuries over the last 12 months or so. So it's not just Zaha that City will have to keep an eye on. Like I said, City need to learn from the lessons of last weekend if they're going to come away with 3 points. They actually failed to score home and away against Palace last season and have only won 1 of their last 4 home matches against them. But we're going to go with a narrow 2-1 win for Guardiola's side this weekend.
You like this? I'm going to go for 2-2. Manchester City against Crystal Palace. I like Crystal Palace. Well, I didn't like them last week when they were absolutely decimating Villa, but I like them as a side. Jonathan?
3-1 to City.
3-1 to Man City. Also, Eze, he doesn't want to be called Eze anymore. It was announced last week. Eze.
What was it?
Eze. Yeah, he's changed it. I don't know. Maybe that's how it always should have been, and people have just been getting it wrong. But yeah, the commentator said it about 50 times on the feed. I was watching the Palace v Villa game last week. Where are we? Oh, great. Jonathan, Villa v West Ham for you. The Marlon Harewood derby. What, the Nigel Rio-Coker derby. Heroes of the game.
Thomas Hitzelsberger.
Thomas Hitzelsberger, my friend. Excellent.
Is he?
Yeah, I know Thomas Hitzelsberger very well.
He can kick a ball very hard, can't he? Oh, he could.
Very, very. I don't know whether injuries caught up with him. I don't know whether he still can.
Yeah.
Good footballer, though. Good player.
Yeah. I think real pressure on both sides. I think whoever loses this manages under a bit of pressure. So West Ham, 3 defeats out of 3 this season, haven't scored a goal yet. If you go back into last season, they've lost 8 of the last 10, and the only win in that, I think, was against Norwich, which barely counts, given how bad Norwich were at the end of last season. They've brought in new signings, which I think is always a little bit of an issue with David Moyes, that his preferred signing are people with experience in England or Czechs. But they brought in 3 from France. For 2 they have signed from English clubs, Cornet and Palmieri. Palmieri, I think 20 games for Chelsea. Cornet 1 season at Burnley. Possibly fatigue there with Rice and Bowen as well. Villa did beat Everton, but it's Everton. But even in the last 11 last season, their only wins were against Norwich and Burnley. I think big questions about Steven Gerrard. Diego Carlos out, Kufal and Dawson both out to West Ham. West Ham won both games last season, 4-1 at Villa Park and 2-1 at London Stadium. But I'm going to go 1-1 this time.
I'm going to go 3-1 to West Ham, unfortunately. I just think they'll just come good. I just know exactly the type of team that Villa can't play against a physical side. I hate predicting Villa to lose, but I'm just being honest. Josh?
We've gone for 1-1 as well, same as Jonathan.
Yeah, God. I'll take 1-1. At the moment, Villa don't draw games either. That's another problem. They either win or they lose. More often than not, they'll lose. Wolves v Newcastle to finish then for you, Josh.
The good news is for Wolves that Raul Jimenez scored in the cup midweek because they're desperately missing a goal scorer at the moment. Without one, they just look like they're going to hammer teams 0-0 until they concede late on, like they did against Tottenham. They're at least trying to look into remedy that in the transfer window, which is a positive for them. But they could use some of the cash that Newcastle have got because they look like they've just gone out and signed a club record deals for Alexander Isak. He might not be involved. I don't know if the deal's going to go through in time, but his arrival is a massive boost because Callum Wilson has already succumbed to injury, and they desperately need a reliable striker if they're going to try and push for Europe this season. Matt Targett returned in midweek as well, which is a massive boost for them because Dan Burn looks like he's going to sit out again with concussion. Ryan Fraser and John Joe Shelby will probably miss out too. It looks like at some point in this game we're going to have Adama Traore and Alan St. Maximin on the pitch, and that is just going to be complete carnage. Both players love dribbling with the ball and are pretty good at it, so there'll be a lot of probably highlight reel moments for both of them. But we're expecting Newcastle's unbeaten start to the season to continue here in what should be a tight game. 3 of the last 4 between the sides at Molineux have ended 1-0, but we're going to go for a 1-0 Newcastle victory.
2-0 Newcastle for me. Jonathan?
1-0 Newcastle.
1-0 Newcastle. I always get told off because I always predict Wolves to lose and not score. But it just feel a sensible shout quite a lot of the time that they won't score. Can Isak play? Can he play wide as well, or is he just a striker?
Yeah, you can play from the left coming in.
Yeah,
that's a good signing. That is.
Well,
It's come from nowhere.
What I don't understand, why have they signed him and João Pedro? Who I get why they want a little bit more mobility up front. They look at Callum Wilson and Chris Wood, and you think, yeah, as a target man, as a sort of focal point, they work. But if you want somebody with a bit of pace coming from deeper, I totally get why they want to play like that. I just don't quite understand why they've signed 2 when they have St. Maximin, who was brilliant last Sunday. And I mean, yeah, it's never a bad thing to have a bigger squad, but it just seems that wasn't an area that really needed strengthening to bring in 2. And one of them, yeah, but 2 of them just seems a bit odd.
I think St. Maximin, I think he might end up playing on the right sometimes. I think he'd be very good down the right hand side. But I don't know whether you know, Jonathan, I was on Sky yesterday and I said about João Pedro, he's a bit of a Richarlison signing because he can kind of cover all 3 positions. So I thought that.
Yeah, he can come from the right. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good sign. Just the fees nowadays. There's no point talking about fees anymore because they just are. They all look. Anyone who comes in now looks expensive, but the fees, that's just the way they've gone. Let's look now.
Okay, here's a question for you.
Oh, I like. Is it quiz?
Yeah, I mean this might be 24 hours out of date, but at the point when Morgan Gibbs-White was signed by Forest, looking if you have all fees in pounds and clearly, exchange rates have changed. So these figures are always slightly debatable depending whether the deal was done in euros or whatever. But if at the moment that they were done, and obviously, what you include in add-ons. But by the figures used by Transfermarkt, Morgan Gibbs-White, at the moment he signed, and you do the deals in pounds, was the most expensive player of all time. So in the sense that Neymar is the most expensive player of all time.
Right.
And I don't know, is Kylian Mbappe the second most expensive player of all time?
Yeah.
So what number is Morgan Gibbs-White in the all-time list of expensive transfers?
Is Coutinho still third?
18th.
No. Across the world?
Across all time, across the whole planet.
Wow. I'll go 87.
Oh, not bad. He's the 100th most expensive player of all time.
I nearly went for around 100. That is madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
a
is
player who I honestly think if you show me a photo of him, I'm not sure I'd be able to name him. Like, obviously, if he was wearing football kit, I would. But like, if you show me a picture
right on the back of his shirt, you might recognise him.
Yeah.
That is a good stat, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Top 100. So he'd be dropping out of that top 100
pretty quickly,
in the next hour, probably.
Yeah, might not even be the 100th most expensive Nottingham Forest signing by the end of the window.
Yeah, that's true. Let's look now at Arsenal against Fulham. Arsenal top of the league, absolutely flying. Josh, does that give you hope for the future with Manchester United? That this time last year we were all laughing at Arsenal. Now that you kind of see what they've done, and it's all worked out. It does show that in a way managers do need a bit of time. I think it helps the documentaries on at the moment as well. My views are always very skewed when there's a documentary going on.
To be fair, there is a bit of hope because Arsenal are now reaping the benefits of the decisions that Arteta made at the start of this year, where he got rid of a lot of players where he didn't think matched the ethos of the culture of the club that he wanted to create. And now you see this team who is young, hungry. They all seem to be together. All the signings have come in and have done exceptionally well. Saliba's come back and obviously he's made a great impact. So that if Manchester United did the same as that, get rid of the likes of Ronaldo and that sort of thing, then maybe 12 months' time we'll be in a similar position. But for Arsenal, I think it's been like with Gabriel Jesus in particular. We spoke about him in the summer that he was the best signing that Arsenal could have made in their position in terms of signing a striker. But I've still been surprised by how good he was. I think it's interesting because leading the line for Brazil and Manchester City seemed to weigh on him a little bit. Like he had the pressure of the iconic Brazilian strikers on his shoulders, and then he had to try and live up to Aguero at City. But at Arsenal, he seems to have been empowered by the responsibility. I think he's already been made one of like the vice captains, which could be a masterstroke by Arteta just to make him feel even more confident. But yeah, he's already had a direct hand in 5 goals this season, which no one can better in the league. Only Dean Henderson has got a better WhoScored rating of new signings in the Premier League. And I think this is the first time Arsenal have started the league campaign with 3 wins since the Invincibles year. I think that's correct. So like things couldn't have gone better. But obviously, as Jonathan said at the start of the show, they're yet to play anyone that's really going to test them. And I guess that will come probably next weekend against Manchester United if they can continue how they performed on Monday. But it's been a dream start, and they need to capitalise on it because obviously Liverpool, United, and Chelsea are a long way back at the moment. And they could quickly find themselves in a strong position to try and get back in the Champions League because it's been a long time since they're in that competition.
Josh, still talking about Manchester United as a Champions League team. Come on, you've won 1 game, Josh. Let's all calm down a little bit here. You say about tough games. Jonathan, I actually think this is a tough game. I've been really impressed with Fulham so far. I naively had them down. They'll go straight back where they came from. They've made some smart signings and they look a good outfit. Yeah,
they do. I mean, it's been slightly odd in that they could easily win all 3 games, and yet they need a last-minute winner from Mitrovic, having chucked away 2-goal lead against Brentford, even to have 1 win. So, but I think they can, legitimately say they could have. It wouldn't have taken much to go differently for them to have 9 points at the minute. Mitrovic looks dangerous, which is, I think that was the big doubt that he scored so many goals in the Championship. He was such a big part of that promotion campaign, but hasn't really done it in the Premier League before. But the way he really unsettled Virgil van Dijk that first game of the season. I mean, Van Dijk arguably hasn't really recovered from that. So I think that's a huge positive for them. But I just think the structure looks really good. And yeah, I mean, it's very early, but I'd be surprised now on what I've seen if they go straight back down.
I mentioned him every week so far. In every podcast I do, but Paulinho in midfield, Josh, he looks a great player. That's such a good signing, such a clever signing.
I think that it also just sums up how what a strong position the Premier League are in at the moment in terms of financials, because Paulinho is definitely a player that could play above Fulham, but Fulham have somehow managed to get him from Sporting. The same with Nunez for Wolves, although I guess it's a bit different because they are basically Portugal FC. But the fact that these clubs are able to sign players who could definitely be playing in European competitions just shows how strong and deep the league is going to be this season. As Jonathan said earlier, it's probably not going to be a 90-plus point title in this season, because there will be a lot of unexpected results, because there are so many teams that look so much better this season. But yeah, Fulham have made a much better start to the season than I was expecting. I think, as Jonathan said, the fact that Mitrovic has sort of started the season well was really important, because he was a player that was sort of lingering in that bracket of a player that could smash it in the Championship but couldn't cut it in the Premier League. And he started the season with 3 goals in 3 games. He's one of the top 10 rated players in the Premier League according to our ratings at the moment. So it's been a good start, and it'll be a good test for Arsenal. This, I think, as you said,
we should all go to a Fulham game at some point. Who scored day out? I like going to Craven Cottage. We should all go. It's quite easy to get tickets for a Fulham game. Let's go and watch a Fulham game together. Jonathan, would you come?
Absolutely, it's very close to my flat. So
there we go. Let's get this in the diary. It's exciting. Yeah. I'll look at the fixture list. I'll be on the WhatsApp straight after this show, booking that one in. I've lost myself looking forward to that day trip. Where are we on this podcast now? Anything else you want to say about Arsenal, anyone? I feel like we didn't cover them really in depth, but they have been impressive so far. Saliba, Jonathan, do you like Saliba?
Oh, he's been hugely impressive, yeah. He was one of those players, young player with a big reputation. Obviously had a very good season in France last year. But you always do slightly wonder about adaptation to the Premier League. And again, there's that caveat. Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, particularly Leicester and Bournemouth, I don't think they're teams who present an enormous attacking threat. So there will be much tougher tests to come. And maybe against Mitrovic is his biggest test so far. But yeah, the first 3 games, it couldn't really go much better for him, apart from the own goal he scored, obviously. Even that seemed to just sort of accentuate his sort of hero status, because everybody was sort of singing his name immediately afterwards.
And that's to hear that song at Bournemouth last week. It was just constant, the Saliba song last week at playing Bournemouth. It was all you heard the entire game. I'm still thinking about beers by the river with Jonathan Wilson. What's your beer of choice, Jonathan? What have you got your go-to beer?
Well, what I was drinking last night is Jarl, which is
never heard of it. It's
very light. It's 3.8%. Sort of a light bitter. I can't be doing it. If anything beyond for 4.2%, I just can't be doing with anymore.
I like a neck oil, but they're dangerous.
Yeah, I don't mind the taste of a neck oil, but yeah, it's getting a bit on the strong side.
Score predictions then for Arsenal v Fulham. I've gone 1-0 to the Arsenal. Jonathan?
3-1 to Arsenal.
3-1 to Arsenal. Josh?
2-0 to Arsenal.
So we're going to league table this again. Even though I started to do too well and everyone stopped caring about the league table last season. Like, because I was winning, Martin just binned it off. It felt like last season.
Yeah, I'll make notes.
Please.
And if you're doing well, I'll stop.
Just stop it again. Yeah. Considering, Jonathan doesn't like fantasy football, but I'm bottom of nearly every fantasy football league I'm doing this season. The worst start I've ever had. So I need to be good at something this season, because Villa are crap. My fantasy football's crap, and I'm still crap at FIFA. So I need to be good at something. So score predictions is going to be my thing. Let's look now at Southampton against Manchester United, Josh. And as I said at the start, you're probably buzzing on Monday. But it was good to see a performance from Manchester United, and you kind of got a taste of what Ten Hag wants to do. And he made some clever tactical tweaks in that game. But I actually think this is now the acid test going away to Southampton, because I actually think they'll lose.
Yeah, okay. It would be very typical of United in the last few years to put in a very good performance or get a very good result, and then to follow that up with something poor and to drop points. But I do think, as you said, I think Ten Hag's position has definitely strengthened from the decisions that he made to drop Maguire, Shaw and Ronaldo. Everyone that came in for those players performed well. I still worry about if Ronaldo sticks around beyond the end of the transfer window. I don't think anything good can happen from Ronaldo staying at the club if he's going to spend more time on the bench than he is on the pitch. There's no way he's not going to kick off in some form. So I would be a bit concerned about that. But yeah, I think the performance against Liverpool was really good from the way that they worked. Like I said earlier in the show, like the fact that they actually ran around a lot was just refreshing for Manchester United fans. They haven't really seen a team that's that seem to care a great deal in recent times. I think that was really symbolised by Lisandro Martinez's performance. I just loved the aggression that he brought. He looked like he was ready to fight anyone that came near him. I think Martinez versus Milner was the duel that no one expected from that game. But yeah, he performed really well. But like there still lacked quality at times. I thought everyone was quite sloppy in possession at times. But I think that can be to be expected against a team like Liverpool. Even though they didn't perform well, they still have that aura about them that they can sort of take the possession from you at any point and sort of put you away. But yeah, we'll have to see how it goes this weekend, because it would be very typical of United to drop points. But they've set the standards now in terms of work rate, and I think fans are really going to hold them accountable to that.
And you're just talking about Ronaldo, Josh. When he's scoring 90th minute winners or equalises in the Europa League, you'll absolutely love him again, won't you?
It will be hard to
with Ronaldo. He's going to be Europa League, maybe your Europa League go-to player this season, which I'm sure he'll love.
Yeah, he's going to absolutely. If that's the case, he'll absolutely hate that, and he'll probably refuse to play, to be honest. But even before the game, when he walked up to the Sky cameras to speak to Gary Neville, blank Carragher, and embrace Roy Keane, he knew exactly what he was doing there. That wasn't just a pleasant chat. He knew that he wanted to be in the picture somehow, and there'll be plenty more of that if he stays. And he'll be waiting for things to slip up as well, and then there'll be leaks probably from the dressing room, probably from his side of things. But yeah, I do hope that he leaves.
It was linked with Marseille yesterday, which I didn't really understand at all. Jonathan, Manchester United have signed a central midfielder. Finally, after all these years, they've got a central midfielder of substance through the door. It's Casemiro. Good signing? Bad signing? What do you think of that?
Well, he's a good player. And I think in the short term, it's an area where United have been lacking. I think the fact that he's played successfully at international level with Fred is a positive. But as ever with United, you look at the long-term picture and you think you're giving a 5-year contract to a 30-year-old. You're paying him an enormous amount. Successful teams who plan well, don't sign players over the age of 30. So City haven't signed a 30-year-old since Bakary Sagna in 2014. Liverpool haven't signed a 30-year-old since Ragnar Klavan in 2016.
What?
It feels like another short-term patch in a team that's made up of short-term patches. Now, I think this patch is a pretty good patch, but I'd like to think this is sort of clearing the ground for the start of this sort of philosophical overhaul that Ten Hag presumably has been brought into an act. And nothing I've seen since Ferguson left in 2013 suggests they have the patience or the wherewithal or the footballing knowledge to do that.
Josh, I'm sure you'll be pleased, won't you, to get us on to, because like I said, that midfield's needed a refresh. My only slight concern, well, not my only, one of my concerns would be Real Madrid don't usually let players go unless there's something up.
Yeah, I'm really conflicted about the signing. On one hand, he is a great player, but on the other hand, as Jonathan said, how they've gone from pursuing Frankie de Jong all summer to briefly flirting with Rabiot for a little bit to then ending up with Casemiro, it just rings alarm bells. It just tells me that United are acting without strategy once again. And obviously, De Jong and Casemiro interpret that position so completely different to one another. So I'd be shocked if Ten Hag asked Casemiro to play the way that he was going to with De Jong. But then Casemiro has gone from playing with Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, who he'd win the ball back and let them give them the ball, to now he's potentially going to play with players like McTominay. And I just think Christian Eriksen's going to be so important now if Casemiro is the only midfield signing that Manchester United do make, because he's the one player that you look at who has the ability to play from deep and play efficiently. Bruno Fernandes hasn't got the patience he hasn't shown that he has the patience for that sort of role. We even saw it against Liverpool towards the end when it was in stoppage time, I think, and Fernandes tried this outrageous pass to try and get Ronaldo through on goal, but just ended up giving the ball straight back to them. But then on the other hand, I can't lie and say I wasn't buzzing when I saw Casemiro in the stadium, and when I saw him go up to Roy Keane, that was a great moment. And Manchester United fans have been crying out for a defensive midfielder for years now. We finally signed one, but all summer we've been led to believe that we were going to sign a player that wasn't your typical ball winner, but was more of a ball player. So yeah, I just can't shake the feeling of how we've just ended up with Casemiro. That would concern me, to be honest.
I loved that moment because Roy Keane, he tries to be mean and tries to be cool, but you could see he was absolutely buzzing with Casemiro coming over to him. I really, really enjoyed that moment. It's a bit like the Manchester United transfer team. Like they've got a bunch of like trading cards, like footballer trading cards, and they can't get the midfielder from Barcelona, so they go and look at what's in the Real Madrid trading cards pack. And they just decide to pick someone from there instead. That's what it feels like a little bit. But he's a good player for the next few years at least. I think it will help Manchester United. I don't think it's going to make them worse, which is probably the main thing at the moment for Manchester United.
He should at least, if you're a defender, you would at least be certainly more confident with him in front of you than you would with McTominay or Fred in that sort of number 6 position. So
exactly.
In that respect, it should be a positive. But it's just at Real Madrid, he was very used to sort of being quite deep, being quite close to that defence, and obviously Ten Hag, the way that he likes to play is to try and be further up the pitch. So it'll be interesting to see who adapts in that sort of that respect.
Quick word on Southampton so far this season, Jonathan.
I think they're in big trouble. I think things have looked ragged for a little while there now. I think their summer signings are very focused on youth, which can go two ways, but I think it is a gamble. I think changing Hasenhüttl's backroom staff suggests the club aren't entirely comfortable with him. Fought back well against Leeds. Got to give him credit for that. And yeah, they've got to win by beating Leicester. So 4 points is a reasonable return from 3 games. I feel this game will be harder for United in some ways than the Liverpool game, in that suddenly there's expectation. And I think, although Hasenhüttl likes to play on the front foot, I think Southampton can sit deeper. And I'm not sure that... The thing I always criticised United for under Solskjaer was they were great when there's space behind the opposing defence. But when there's not, do they have the craft, the guile to unpick it? And that question, I think, still hasn't been answered. So I still think United will win, but I think this will be I think there's a potential for this to be quite a frustrating game for them.
Go on then, Jonathan. Let's have your score prediction.
2-1 to United.
2-1 to United. And Josh?
Same 2-1. This is Man United have really struggled at St Mary's recently, at least. So I think it's going to be another tough game. 2-1.
And this is how you get yourself top of the league. I'm going to go Southampton 2, Manchester United 1. These are the differentials that can move you up or make you look absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I just think I've got a feeling that Southampton, for some reason, Che Adams will be the most dangerous forward on that pitch when they play for some reason. I don't know why.
I think he scored. He did score in the last game between the two sides, and he scored 4 goals in his last 2 games. So
yeah, it's just one of those games where it will just be ridiculous. Football can be ridiculous sometimes, and Che Adams, I think, will just cause Manchester United problems. So yeah, 2-1 to Southampton for me. And that does us. Oh, what a great podcast. Really, really enjoyed it. And we've got a day out planned as well. It's the perfect podcast for me. Everything's gone right for us there. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed to the channel with your post notifications on, if you could please do that, we'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Jonathan. And as ever, stay safe.